guys. Well, as you've probably noticed, I'm in a different part of my workshop at the moment, and the reason is quite simple. Down here on the deck, I've got some stuff that I want to show you. Now, primarily what this is a system from Plugmolds.com. Now, years back I used to have a similar system, but I couldn't find it anymore, and I started googling around and I found a lovely site called Plugmolds.com, and they have these little white blocks. I'll pop them up that you can see. But what exactly are they? Well, if you are like me, I'm never happy with my soldering connections, and a classic example we can see, I'll pop you into this camera, I've got an XT90, it's okay. You know, you can wrap heat shrink all over this thing and it's kind of adequate, but at some point it will break. So how do you fix this problem? Well, there's a rather ingenious way of doing this, and essentially it's kind of a molded system. Let me show you under this camera over here. So it's a molded system, and what we do is we use our glue gun over here to inject hot glue into the system, which bonds it all together. Now, I've not actually used this molding system at this point in time. I've used it on an old XT60 with an aluminium one, whereas these things from Plugmolds are all PTFE based, and well, I'm going to give it a bash and we will do this all live for the first time and see what happens. So, what I've done here, I have extracted the XT60. Let me move all these other ones out the way because I've got a variety, some for XT60s, some for XT90s. We have a whole lot of screws. I don't know what that is. So, what we're going to do is we've got to get this little item into here. And I'm hoping this will be straightforward. It feels relatively tight, but I guess you probably want that. Ah, snap and click. So that's positive. And then we get this bit, and I guess we do the same thing. Now, from there, ooh, I'm dropping bits everywhere. So we see we've got a block holding our XT60 connector, and what I'm going to do is screw it completely tight with the 4 provided screws. And I guess the reason you do this is essentially injection molding. And if there's any air gaps, all the glue and gunk's going to squeeze out, and we've got to make sure that doesn't happen. So, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. There we go. Sure takes a bit of time. I might have to fast forward this on the footage. But, there we go. And we should just have one more. Now, in a previous incarnation I had, which is probably where Plugmolds got the idea, the mold was made out of kind of aluminium, milled aluminium. In this case, these are done with PTFE type material, which I think the melt point of PTFE is in the region of 300 odd degrees, so we're not going to get anywhere near it with the hot glue, despite the fact that it's a plastic. Right, as we can see, we have the XT90, it's all in the mold. We're going to line this thing up, and I'll get rid of the excess hot glue here. And I'm guessing I'm just going to have to shove that in there and squeeze. Whee! I can actually get that right in that hole. And I'm just going to squeeze and pull the trigger, and it's bleeding, it's doing what it's doing. So I think that probably means we're pretty close to the fact that it's all coming out. One last squeeze and I'll take it out. Ah, don't do that, that burns. And I've got what looks like a bloody gunky mess all over the table, haven't I? So, the question is, has it worked? Now, just for good measure, I'm going to unplug my glue gun, because I don't like having glue dripping everywhere. And I guess what we've got to do... this is not a clean job. I think maybe a little bit more preparation. As you can see, I've managed to get sticky muck on everything. So this, in hindsight, I should have had a mat. So there's a lesson for you guys. Put a mat down, because I'm putting sticky muck everywhere. But what we need to do now is just wait a few seconds for all of this to dry, because you can imagine what's going on here is that the glue is really, really hot. And if I take this cover off too fast, all that's going to happen is all this hot melted glue is just going to go everywhere, and I'll have kind of bodged the whole job up. So what I anticipate is a couple of minutes waiting for that to seal up. Now, I also think I'm not that happy with how all the glue spilled out of that, and I kind of wonder if I should have injected a tiny little bit in there and just allowed it to harden first, because then when I injected through the actual hole it wouldn't have caused a problem. And I'm just going to push a tiny bit more into there just to make sure that it's full up. But you kind of, I guess you can get the idea what's going on here, and it's bleeding out of that top one there now. Yeah, I think it's a waiting game with a little bit of patience, because it just takes time for it to glue. And you know, as I said, I did this a long time ago with an aluminium one, and it actually hardened very quickly, but that's probably because aluminium conducts heat a hell of a lot faster than the PTFE does. So the result is the glue cooled down faster. But we're nearly there, still a little bit touch dry. I dare say you could probably just pop this into a fridge if you wanted to, and it would seal up very, very quickly. And what I'm doing at the moment is just on that little excess you can see over here, I'm just trying to squeeze some of that in just to harden up and make sure that it's kind of neat, because I don't want to have to cut all of this excess off, so it's just kind of feathering it into the cable. You can see the result. Now all I need is for that to dry, and I think I'm going to wait 5 minutes. We will zap through that at high speed on the camera, and then you can kind of see what that's about, because I really don't want to open this too soon. Give it a couple of minutes, I'll be back. Okay, so I'm back. I have allowed all of this to dry, and if we look down on the camera here, I've trimmed all this bit off here. Now, earlier on, I did originally have it where it was kind of basically just all feathered and bleeding in, but actually I just didn't like it so much like that. So what I've done is to trim it all off. I haven't used a knife or anything, I've just used my fingernails and plucked it a little bit, and it seems to have worked. And I'm hoping that it's now cool enough inside that if we unscrew this, it will work. And I'm kind of rushing this slightly, to be honest, but it will be an interesting test, because maybe we need to leave these things for like 10 minutes. I don't know, I just don't know. And I guess that might actually also depend a little bit on the material you're using when you actually glue, because I don't think all glues are necessarily equal. They probably have different melt points. There we go. 2 of those are out. And the last ones. I hope this works, because it will be a complete bodge if it doesn't. Okay, now if you can see, the mould has this handy little stripe, and I guess the reason is you're probably either going to want a fingernail in there. Oh, that ain't going to happen, so maybe a screwdriver, maybe one of those. I need something bigger than that. No. How do I do this? I think maybe I can just squeeze in. Oh yeah, there you go, just a little bit of nudging and out it goes. And out it goes, there we go, we take that off. And it actually seems like the glue doesn't bond very well to the PTFE, so that's quite good. Now, wow, that is utterly superb. Look at that. Actually, I'll put it on this camera for you. Look at that. That is a completely sealed, completely bonded XT90 connector. Now, if I get myself just from down here a little trimming knife, there's a few little bits where the rubbers come off, and what we've got to do is just trim that off. Trim that off. These are minor problems really, and I think just a tiny little bit of tidying up on that. You know, you know, to be honest, you probably don't need to do what I'm doing here, unless you're being very, very fussy like I am. But I'm just taking off the little bit of overspill that has occurred. But I don't think you really need to do that, because you know what? What you've got here is an absolutely solid XT90 or XT60. Wow, you know, I've got, this is strong. This is not going to come off, so I think it's done what it's meant to do. I can safely say that this is probably what I'm going to do on just about every other model I have, because I hate the fact that the connectors come undone. Wow, just look at that. Absolutely superb. It's going nowhere. I think the results speak for themselves. I'm very happy with it. This was the first attempt using these molds, and well, go check out plugmolds.com. They are pretty blimmin' good.